Walk me through the factors driving this most recent run-up in gold and explain to me where you think it's heading. What is the price target now?
Good morning, Dan, and thank you for having me. There's multiple factors that has led to the current or the recent rally. First of all, I think the current environment from when it comes to at least the geopolitical tensions from one side, and one of the things, the most important one, was the remarks from the former U.S. President Donald Trump talking about Taiwan and questioning whether if the U.S. has the reasons to defend it. So it's kind of like the market's kind of like concerned that it might be another war at some point next year or so. That's from one side. Another thing is, of course, definitely the continuous change in the expectations when it comes to when the Federal Reserve and how many rate cuts will be. You know, at the beginning of the year, markets were expecting about 6 rate cuts, and then it went down all the way to 3. The Federal Reserve now expecting only 1, according to the dot plot. But the data is suggesting, or at least according to the Fed Fund futures now, we're expecting about 3 rate cuts starting in September. So I think in addition to that, I would suspect at the same time that Russia last week might actually bought another bulk, because if you look at the relationship or the correlations between gold and the Russian reserves on the monthly chart, it's almost 1-to-1. But this will give us the answer in the next few weeks when Russia announced their monthly gold reserves. But I think still the 2,500 is not that far off, and it could be just about time. The only thing that I always get afraid of is when people kind of overestimate the bull run, if it's going to continue or not, because this would basically add another factor to the short squeeze that we're seeing now.
You know, it's really fascinating. And to your point, gold really emerging as the preferred hedge, I guess you could say, against some of this economic and geopolitical uncertainty. But how do you see the dynamics between gold and interest rates evolving from here, particularly if we see that Fed cut coming through, as market pricing might suggest, in September? What happens to gold?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, most of the people, at least from retail, I speak to a lot of retail traders at Squared Financial here, and there's some sort of like misconception, because now there's some people are kind of confused, like inflation is going down, why gold is going down? It's not always about just because inflation was up, gold basically surged, because it's a multiple factor. But now on the short-term interest rates, as long as the Federal Reserve is expected to cut again or to start cutting in September, the short-term interest rates still, at least if you look at the 10-year yields, we had the lowest close since almost 6 months now. So I think the dynamics will continue to favor gold, at least for the time being. But the question would be for how long the Federal Reserve will be able to cut rates. Is it going to be one and done in September, or if it's going to be gradual and continuous? Because according to Fed Fund futures, till today, we might even have 4 rate cuts from now until January, starting September, and even in November, December, and in January. If this actually continues, this might kind of send a signal that the Federal Reserve might actually be worried about being late in cutting rates, similar to what when they were late in raising them. So still, I think it will give a little bit more. It will be in favor for gold, but I would also warn retail investor not to be over optimistic, because you can't be basically buying gold at record high, at least from my perspective.
Right. And Noureldeen, just before I let you go, for investors, it's a question of safety versus speculation right now as well. How do you see the rally in gold also perhaps linking in or being related to the move higher that we've seen in Bitcoin? And what does it all mean for US equities? Because I also know you're in the camp that's calling for a pretty sizable correction here, even as we see gold and Bitcoin going up.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, they just needed any kind, cryptocurrencies anyway, they just needed any kind of comments, but to start kind of like moving in a crazy move. I mean, we saw this on Bitcoin last week, because the U.S. president, or the former U.S. president, said that we have to do all the mining from the United States, the crypto from the United States. This could be because that his policies will be built or based on more about deregulations. So it might kind of help the market a little bit. But I don't think it's a huge thing or like it's something that will add a lot to the crypto market. But we still see that Bitcoin, the idea to get to the 100,000 could be a matter of time. On the other hand, the U.S. equities, I've always been like bullish for the past 2 years. But at the same time, it's time to take some profit taking. And I think at some point, if the Federal Reserve is actually late in cutting rates, and that might be to start seeing some sort of these kind of signs, I think the market will start realizing that. And if that happens, actually, we can see some sort of at least between 5 to 7% retracement.